The question, in case people didn't hear, was that there are literally streets where across the road things change. But in a situation like this, you have to draw the line somewhere. You have to make those boundaries clear so that people understand, and those boundaries are going to be drawn somewhere. So we just asked everybody to please respect the advice and to exercise common sense. As we've always said throughout the pandemic, no matter what rules we put in place, we also need people to exercise their common sense and act in a way in which is going to protect them and their loved ones. And as we've seen overnight, the situation can change quite rapidly and quite concerningly. We have never ever hesitated to take the health advice and to make sure we do the right thing by the community, but that's why we just need everybody to make sure they stick to the rules we've put in place since midnight yesterday. We'll be evaluating the health advice we received shortly, including with members of the Crisis Cabinet Committee, and then determining whether we need to go further at this stage. I do want to foreshadow that that could well be the case, but that will be dependent upon the health advice provided by Dr. Chan and the experts in the next little while.
You know, surely now it's inevitable that this lockdown has to go greater than these local government areas that we've already seen. Is it safe to say that people listening right now and listening to the news tonight should just start preparing for that?
Well, I think people should prepare for the news that we've given them to date, which is the situation is worsening beyond what we would have liked to have seen this morning. And the reason for that is that the new exposure sites are outside of those areas of concern we'd highlighted. And whilst it's early, like literally some of the cases are a couple of hours old, there is concern that some of those cases may have been exposed for a number of days without the person knowing they had the virus, and that's where our concern is. And that's what we'll be looking at in the next few hours. That's what the health advice will be provided to myself and my colleagues, and we'll rely on that advice if we need to update the orders or if we need to update the extent to which people have to stay at home.
Lockdown extend to people who visited those 4 LGAs, for instance, to shop or to eat at a cafe, and if not, why not?
Yeah, at this stage, the health advice was if you usually work or live in those areas in the last 14 days. So that is the health advice. If we need to update that, we will. But it's if you usually work or live in those areas, you have to stay at home. And if you usually work or live or get educated, go to TAFE or uni in those 7 LGAs, please do not set a foot outside metropolitan Sydney.
More prudent to extend it to people who were perhaps regular shoppers in the CBD, for instance, that may not work in that area?
Well, look, we rely on the health advice to give that information out to the community, and people can also self-assess in addition to the advice we give them. Everybody has to be extra cautious. Everybody has to consider what this means for them and their loved ones. For example, I've certainly made the decision not to go anywhere near my parents, and I'm sure many others will be making those personal decisions as well. Even though under care and compassion, those provisions are allowed under certain circumstances, I'm just asking everybody to assess their own risk, to assess how their loved ones are impacted, how the community is impacted. And I know for a fact that many people, only because of my proximity to the health advice, that many people who have the virus and unintentionally pass it on to others suffer, in many instances, unnecessarily guilt, because you could be in danger unknowingly, putting other people's lives in danger, especially those closest to you. As Dr. Chant and the health experts have said, unlike other variants, this variation of the virus means that you're more likely to pass it on to all of your household contacts. Previously, it was around 30% of household contacts. We're seeing in this example, families of 5 or 6, everybody getting it. So one person takes it home, and then previously 1 or 2 people in the household may have had it. Now we're seeing everybody get it. And so this is different to what we've seen before. And that's why the New South Wales government may need to act in a different way that we've acted before. We already have, based on that health advice. And I just want to make that very clear. When there's lives and people's health at risk, we will not hesitate to act very quickly on whatever health advice we receive. I want to make that very clear. I've said from the outset, I don't care what people think of me or the government. What I do care about is people's safety and making sure we get information to the public as soon as we need to. And that is the advice we will rely on. Our advice to date has been outstanding and we'll continue to rely on it moving forward. But I just ask everybody not only to follow the health orders and the health advice, but also to exercise extra caution, extra degree of concern for those people closest to you and also for the broader community.